Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest polling from YouGov on how the public think the Tory government is handling a number of key policy areas. For Rishi Sunak, the news is monumentally awful. Literally, they could erect a statue in memory of how low the confidence of the British public is in the government. And even the two policy areas where the Conservatives have a net positive rating are not, when you think about it, good news for them. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So YouGov has presented its findings on the public's views of how well or badly the government is managing 15 different policy areas, and it covers all of the ones that the public ever show a particular interest in as well. So there's no arguments about, oh, it's missing, areas of Conservative strength. Of all the 15 areas, the Conservatives only have a net positive rating in 2 of them, and in 1 it's only just. In every other area, more people think the government is doing badly than well, and in many cases, a lot more think badly than well. Now, I'm going to begin by pointing out the nuance in polling that we should always be aware of. So first of all, general public opinion doesn't really count for very much in a first-past-the-post system. The Conservatives could easily be on for another election win, with the public taking a dim view of them on a whole raft of policy areas. It's also the case that some policy areas just rarely determine voting decisions. Like I've talked recently when it comes to the culture wars, how the Tories are pushing the wrong buttons with trans rights. Everyone's got an opinion, but almost nobody is thinking of it when deciding who to vote for in a general election. So in order to consider these a bad set of polls for Sunak, we have to consider a couple of things. First, which are the policy areas which generally attract votes for them? And secondly, how are they doing on those priority policy areas? Well, let's go for the easy two. All voters prioritise the economy and then healthcare, including swing Conservative voters. On the economy, 17% think the government are doing well, to 77% think they're doing badly. They're not going to be winning anything on 17% of the vote. And when you consider that there will always be some people who defend their tribe no matter what, those 17% are almost certainly people who don't actually stand back and go, oh yes, I think they're doing a really good job with the economy. They're just people who are going to reactively back the Conservatives, even if the leader went around the country bludgeoning puppies for the cameras. When it comes to the NHS, even worse. Only 14% think the government are doing well, to 82% badly. So Sunak's latest attempt to blame doctors for the terrible state of affairs doesn't really seem to be working, does it? And the virtually invisible Health Secretary, Stephen Barclay, isn't doing anything to inspire confidence amongst the public either. He's gone on holiday. I mean, I don't mean because it's holiday season. It's like ever since he was made Health Secretary, we've seen nothing of him. So on the 2 key issues for most swing voters, the Tories are blowing it badly. So what about the additional policy areas which the government are trying to convince the public are really important? Which are the ones the Tories are pushing because they think they can get some leverage here? Well, they focus a lot of their public statements over the last few months on immigration, crime, inflation and Brexit at the moment. Well, immigration has been their poster boy for over a year now. Oh, pushing it under 3 different prime ministers. Immigration, immigration, immigration. It's their worst result of the lot. Only 10% think they're doing well, to 82% think they're doing badly. 8 times as many voters think they're doing badly as well. So it seems that 10% of the public either making a living out of hiring out tents and barges, or that is the number who will defend the Tories no matter how many puppies they bludgeon. But however you slice it, the Tories are winning no votes on immigration, aren't they? I mean, are they? They're really pushing this policy as well. Really pushing it. And still, only 10% think they're doing well. If there are voters out there who think immigration is going to decide how they spend their vote, and there are, doesn't look like the Tories are going to get that vote. I mean, looking at this poll, you would think the majority of them will either vote for Reform UK for their more plausible policies of cruelty, or Labour just to actually get things done. The next one's crime. Tories have been pushing their latest police recruitment drive, even though it's still lower per capita than under Labour, and saying that crime has fallen when it's actually risen. Doesn't look like the public are convinced. 22% think they're doing well to 68% who think they're doing badly. Again, 22% in a key policy area, not going to win you the election. Next is inflation. Now, Rishi Sunak always talks about inflation. You know, he goes into a coffee shop, he's asked what sort of coffee he wants. He cannot actually respond without explaining about inflation. It's his answer to every question on any subject. Inflation. Why is this so bad? Inflation. Why is this so bad? Oh, that's inflation too. Everything's inflation. Why are your shoes the wrong size? That's inflation too. Yesterday, he told the public to trust him. So I'm assuming the public at least think he's doing well on his main hobby horse. Oh. Just 14% think the government's doing well to 79% think badly. So all those positive headlines in the Tory client media every time inflation goes down a little bit, not working. It's almost as if I was right when I said that people don't care about some inflation figure. What they care about is their own personal inflation. They can feel when that's going up. Doesn't matter that you point to CPI inflation coming down a bit. They're going, yeah, but my inflation's going up. And this is the problem. Sunak is focusing on one particular measure of inflation. It's just a statistical measure. It's a useful enough measure at certain times. But people's actual inflation is how much their own costs are rising compared to how much their income is rising. You're not going to fool the public on this one. And because their own costs are rising higher than the official inflation figure would suggest, because that ignores certain costs. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if some voters are actively irritated by Sunak trying to say things are going well when they wake up each morning to find out they're poorer still. Then there's Brexit, the beast which shall not be named by the opposition, but about which the Tories want to talk about all the time. Surely the public think that's going well. They get told often enough it's going well. Both the media and the government, oh, it's good, terribly well. There are more benefits. Here are this week's benefits. After all, you know, the Tories do keep talking about it, not actually able to name any benefits which aren't lies, but, you know, they do keep talking about it. Well, best news so far for Sunak, 24% think they're managing well, but 67% badly. Might be better than other policy areas, but it's hardly a ringing endorsement. I'd also argue that because people can't always see the link between Brexit and the impact on their lives, harder for most of the public to discern how leaving the EU has affected them in some cases. Because like I say, there are some areas where people's lives are getting worse, where Brexit made it worse, but it's not the sole cause. Take food inflation. A lot of that's the war in Ukraine. Some of it's Brexit. People don't necessarily know how you split it up. You know, and this is especially the case because the media hardly ever tells them. But despite those smoke screens of media silence, Tory lies, COVID and the war in Ukraine, 67% of the public still think the government are doing Brexit badly. And we also know from other polling that Labour are attracting a humongous number of Leave voters back to the fold. So however you try and look at it, the Tories are losing the battle on Brexit. Can't imagine it's going to get any better after the news. I was talking about this earlier on about the standards controls being delayed again. So not looking good, is it? Are the Tories doing well on anything? Yes, actually, sort of. Terrorism and defence have net positive ratings for them. But even these aren't really good news. So let's take a little look. 54% think the government's doing well on terrorism to 25% think badly. That sounds decent. If you could get those results on important policy areas, absolutely that would be good. But consider why the public would think that for terrorism. Like, we haven't had a major terror attack in the UK for a while. So why wouldn't most of the public think the government must be handling it well if they're asked? In fact, I'd question why it's only 54%. But I'll say something else. Even when we are handling something well, can't stop everything. At some point, there's going to be another successful attack. And whoever is in government, no matter what they're doing, no matter which party it is, they're going to take a hit in confidence in a poll like this. This is not an area where the government really wins votes. If there hasn't been an attack for a while, it's out of people's minds. They're happy enough to think the government's doing all right, but it's their minds on other things when they're going to the polling station, the things that are impacting their day-to-day life. But if there is an attack, the government will take the hit. So it's just an area where the government cannot win votes unless they're making a big issue of some major policy drive. But there's no point in doing that unless there's been a recent attack. Otherwise, people think, well, why are you doing this drive? Why aren't you having a policy drive on the cost of living crisis or, something like that? Something important, the NHS, policing, education. So this metric, it's positive for the government. It's fairly worthless when it comes to the election, though. Second one's defence. This is a bit more important. 39% think the government's doing well to 37% who think it's badly. Now, here's the thing. We've not been invaded for a while. People are quite happy with the way the government has supported Ukraine militarily, which is the main focus on the Department for Defence at the moment. Recently, we became the first country, for example, to supply cruise missiles to Ukraine, though others have done so since. So why do only 39% think the government's doing well? I mean, the only reason it's net positive as well, I would say, is because about a quarter of people don't know. Now, defence is one of those policy areas that the Tories like to big up. It appeals to some of their target voters. But even this area where even I would say there's not been any cock-ups. Ben Wallace has done well enough as Defence Secretary. Funding, as with everything else, has been poor. But only 39% of people think they're doing well on it. And in policy areas where you can actually point to outcomes, that's their best result. Because it's hard to point to outcomes with terrorism because an absence of attacks might be there's a superb system behind it, or it might be a lack of attempts. Hard for the public to say. But we can see outcomes in defence because we're always involved in some conflict or other. We're responsible for quite a few of them. So the government are getting plaudits for this. The opposition certainly aren't making a big deal of attacks on the Defence Department. In fact, Labour have said they support the government's moves so far on Ukraine. Yet the Tories only have a small +2 net positive rating for it. No, these polls are an absolute disaster area for the Tories. They show no matter which policy area a voter prioritises when deciding their general election vote, of the ones they realistically would, the Tories are not going to be forming a government once that election takes place. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.